Welcome to the AgeTech Collaborative Forum from AARP. If you are an innovator who wants to work on problems that matter with the upside potential to change the world, you are in the right room. We're here at CES to explore how we together as an ecosystem can apply emerging technology to make aging easier for billions of people worldwide. And that includes you, me, your customers, and everybody that you love and care for. So we're here throughout the conference talking with experts and innovators about how to tap into and do business with the fast-growing but vastly underserved and often misunderstood older consumer segment. And in this conversation, we're going to talk about the most important thing that people worry about, apart from brain health, which we'll talk about that tomorrow, which is outliving their money. So your financial health is very much a part of your overall health and your aging journey. So we're super excited to have this conversation with 3 startup founders who are going after it. So Cody Barbo from Trust and Will, welcome. Tanya Van Court from Goalsetter, welcome. And Kevin Simring from Paperwork, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's have a seat.
Thanks.
Let's have a seat and have a chat. Okay. So when we talk about financial planning and financial wellness for older adults, one of the first things that come to mind is like the end game, right? Like your trust and your will. I know for us, like the day that our governor in Massachusetts announced lockdown for COVID, my husband and I looked at each other and said, our will is 25 years old. we did it when the kids were first born and didn't look at it again. And we actually wound up doing a drive-through will. Right before lockdown. So yeah, like our lawyer was like waving the paperwork in the parking lot and we signed it through the window. So that's probably not the best way to go about it, right? So trust and will, what are you building and why?
Yeah, well, I love the idea for a drive-through pop-up. That might be a good marketing campaign for us. So I'll share the credit there.
There you go.
If we do it. Well, first and foremost, super grateful to be here. Just a show of hands, how many of you have an estate plan currently? You have a will or trust in place? And then those that don't, raise your hand. We're not going to shame you. It's okay. Well, this is the reality, is that half the population doesn't have an estate plan. And even the half that does often never update them. But for the half that don't, what are the reasons behind that? Cost has always been a barrier, spending thousands of dollars with an attorney, going to the attorney's office and meeting with them over the course of weeks or months sometimes never ends up getting done. And honestly, good old procrastination is honestly what gets most people to not do this. So the whole point of Trust and Will is how do we build a brand in the space that gets people aware of that you can do this online, you can do it easily, meaning you can get from start to finish in as little as 30 minutes, and you can do it affordably. You can do it for a couple $100s versus the thousands of dollars that an attorney would charge you. And that's what we set out to do 5 years ago. And to date, we've helped almost 500,000 people go through that process with high-touch customer support and knowing that we're really protecting families that probably never would have done this. So we're very proud of that.
So, and I love the notion of simplicity, because when we think about trust and will, like it's very complicated, the kinds of emotional decisions that you have to make. Or you might also say, well, I don't have a lot of assets, so maybe it doesn't matter. But you're finding that's not really the case.
Yeah, it's the myth. We like to do myth busting in a lot of our content, but always have had this preconceived notion you need to be wealthy to have an estate plan. And when you ask most people that have done it, well, why did you do it? We had kids. And when did you do it? After we were done having kids. And that's for us really I'm a father, I got a 3-year-old, she's super cute, and that's the kind of reflection of my entire network. I call us the elder millennials. We're 30 to 40 now, we're not kids. And all of us are becoming parents. And it's really the first time you start thinking, hopefully, about someone else and not yourself. And things like life insurance and a will to start should be top of mind.
And in that moment of crisis, too, like you don't want your loved ones to be sort of left without this notion of what your wishes were.
You end up in probate. So if you pass in this country, in most modern countries, with a will or no estate plan, you go through probate, which is the state's process for transitioning your wealth and assets. It can take up to 2 years, cost $20,000 or more on average. This is for an everyday family. And the emotional toll that it takes going through this process on your own or trying to navigate it without being an expert. So probate for us is a new offering that we rolled out at the end of last year. And we've helped thousands of families already with probate. We kind of streamline the process with probate as we do for planning. And there's a lot more urgency when you've lost a loved one and you have to take these immediate next steps and actions to help start transitioning their assets. We try to make that as simple of a process as we can on the probate. So pre and post-death.
Which is so crucial because in that emotional moment, you're also having to make incredibly complex decisions. And that's just not where you want those decisions to have already been sort of
Right.
thought through already. All right, so thank you for the work that you're doing.
You're welcome.
So you had this opportunity, you had this moment, this crisis that kind of, right, where you had this moment, this like realization that you need to have the house in order. So walk us through what happened, Kevin.
Yeah. Am I on? Yeah, you can hear me now. Thanks. Well, first of all, as well, thanks for having me here. Yeah, what started our journey at Paperwork was a personal health scare. So a few years ago, I suffered a health scare, and literally on the way to the hospital, I'm thinking to myself, if something happened to me today, would my wife, my family, my kids know where to access all the important paperwork, the will, the power of attorney, the insurance policy, etc., everything they needed to take care of themselves if something happened to me. So realizing just how unorganized I was started our journey at Paperwork, which is really to help folks navigate all of that through all stages of life, but particularly as we get older, what are the things we need to do to achieve financial stability and have financial peace of mind? And so what Paperwork has evolved into today is not just a place where I can organize everything so that my family knows where everything is and can have access to that, but it's really a comprehensive financial wellness platform that helps folks achieve that financial stability through all stages, as I mentioned, Danielle. And our focus is to really help people take action because, as Cody mentioned, there's a lot of procrastination. Kind of know what you need to do, but you don't do it. So in addition to providing the knowledge and skills as to what are the next best steps to take in my financial life, we also offer up those behavioral stimuli. There's a lot of behavioral science built into our app to motivate people to take that next step. And then very important for this demographic are the support systems that surround that. So one is having the ability to access all of my paperwork in one place, just makes life a lot easier. But more than that, collaborating with friends and family, collaborating with my kids, collaborating with my partner, my spouse, and really having that support system to help me stay the course.
So, and I think that's so important because this can be a very kind of lonely and, kind of overwhelming kind of set of decisions that you have to make. Are you doing the right thing? Are you doing enough of the right thing? Are you making the wrong decision? Are you making decisions now that might have implications later on? So how are you helping with that at Paperwork and keeping things organized, but also like keeping you on the right sort of decision path?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the way we approach that and the way we look at financial wellness is really to help guide folks through 5 key elements of their financial lives. And we talk about spending, saving, borrowing, planning, and protecting. So the full personal finance continuum, if I can say that. So spending is, am I actually spending on the right things? Am I prioritizing my spend in the right way, given my age, stage, and circumstance? Saving, given where I'm at, we help folks navigate. Should they be saving towards an emergency fund or putting money into a retirement account? There's a lot that goes into that. Borrowing, do I have manageable debt load? And then planning is the estate planning, where in fact, within our Paperwork app, we partner with Trust and Will. So if folks do need a Trust and Will, we partner with Cody's company. But that's the planning phase. And then the final phase is protection, which is insurance. So do I have the appropriate life insurance in place? Do I need disability insurance? So it's an extremely comprehensive app, taking folks through that 360-degree view of their entire financial life. And as they're going through that, we're actually automatically organizing all of their paperwork, all of the documents, all of their data, so that it is easily accessible in case of emergency. So it's that kind of full circle that we bring to the market.
Well, and I think that view on simplicity is so crucial, right? Because already this is maybe something you don't necessarily want to do, but if you make it easy, then at least, there's not that barrier, right? So Tanya, now, we're tidy up on our will, we've got the financial plan, we're doing well. and you mentioned the spending, right? Now you might think about, well, how do I want to gift this money, this wealth, or transfer this wealth to the next generation? They have very different spending habits than maybe I do, or maybe different attitudes about savings or, the values. So at Gold Sweater, you're really looking at that intergenerational conversation about wealth management.
We are. And so, what's so interesting is just hearing the two gentlemen on my left and right. Cody, you talked about you have this super cute 3-year-old daughter. And, I happen to have a super cute 17-year-old daughter. But I'm like, oh my goodness, let me make sure that she's good to go financially so that she's not on my couch when she's 40 years old and I'm trying to retire and secure my financial future, right? And so, and that honestly is the reality. There are tons of adults who are of retirement age in this country who are supporting their adult children. And in many instances, they're supporting their adult children because their adult children never really learned about financial education, never learned to do when they got that first paycheck to protect and preserve their own wealth. And then even if you get a life insurance policy and something happens to happen to you as an adult, you pass away, those adult children, they are spending that insurance policy on average within 5 years. And so we prepare and protect all of our lives to create generational wealth, but you can't create generational wealth without generational knowledge. So all of that is why GoalSetter exists. We are a savings, financial education, and investing platform created for families. And so we have kids of all ages. I happen to have a 6-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, and a 17-year-old. And they learn about saving principles from day one. They learn about investing principles from day one, but they can also establish their own saving and investing accounts. And so we are teaching kids to be financially independent, financially successful, and financially free so that their parents, when they reach retirement age, they can be financially free of their kids. And when their parents actually pass away, they can leave generational wealth that is protected and preserved, but also grown because these children know how to grow it.
Well, and this intergenerational aspect too, I think in a way is like you're stimulating or catalyzing the conversations that need to happen around the dining room table and the kitchen table that then manifests sort of in an electronic or technology, way. So how are your companies kind of messaging for your customers? Like, how are you drawing people in, giving them the feedback that they need to keep coming back to using your products, and that it's really like solving the problems? So, Cody.
Education. Every single team member, we have 90 people on the team, some of whom are here that joins, except for our 2 attorneys. They're very established trust and estate attorneys. We all came into this through the lens of the consumer, as sons, daughters, as husbands, parents, wives, and not knowing what an estate plan is. So from the start, 5 years ago, we invested in our content. We have hundreds of articles in our Learn Center, from the basics, estate planning 101, to very complex trust of the ultra high net worth and wealthy that gets incredibly interesting, highly recommended, to even following pop culture. I mean, Britney Spears' conservatorship was the hottest topic of the last year in relation to estate planning, and we were quoted in all these publications for it. So education drives over half of all of our site traffic now. We're getting over 500,000 people to the website every month, and they're landing on an education or a Learn Center article, and that's what kicks off the process to get them started. So education.
Okay, education and kind of watching, the feedback loop from other people going through it. Because I imagine, especially in your line of work, it could bust up a lot of families. Like these conversations, and if things aren't sorted out in a way, beforehand, there could be a lot of, discord in the families.
Yeah, prompting that conversation. It's like, I think when I was in high school, my parents sat me down and were like, we need to have a talk. And I'm like, what is this about? And this is like the reverse. My dad's 77, my mom's 67. I'm like, Mom and Dad, we need to have a talk. And it's a little bit different than the one he gave me when I was 13. Yeah. But the idea there is that it's with good intention. I'm the oldest sibling. I know that my brother and I are in the estate plan, their trust, and that if something were to happen to them, we would have to step in. And I want to be best prepared. And that's what really was a spark for me 5 years ago, not when I was just getting married, but never having that conversation with my parents and starting to be concerned with how they dealt with losing their parents and the health and the financial challenges that came with that. And I don't want that burden for my brother and I. I want them to live the rest of their lives peacefully, and then when it ultimately comes to that time, that things can transition fairly seamlessly. And that's our hope for every family out there, is that they get the education, take action to get this set up, have the conversation with their loved ones, and people know what to do when hard times hit.
Yeah, and that's so important, like to know what your parents and loved ones' wishes are, and also like to have access to the content. So at Paperwork, like how do the family members kind of all, collaborate on this holistic financial plans that you have?
Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. The one thing I wanted to mention, though, just you asked, how do we keep members, how do we keep folks engaged in the process? And then I'll circle back to what you've just asked me about. I think it's important to show people financial outcomes. How are they? Are they actually improving the outcomes? I mean, I agree with Cody. Education super important, but as we guide folks through actionable, personalized guidance, what we want to be able to demonstrate to them is that it's actually having an impact on their financial lives. And so what we've created within Paperwork as one of our, what we call the behavioral stimuli, is a financial health score. So actually measuring their financial health across those 5 indicators that I mentioned: spending, saving, borrowing, planning, and protecting. We have a proprietary score that runs an algorithm based on a lot of different factors. But what it does is really show people at a very high level how they're doing in each of those segments. And it kind of drives them back to say, well, if I'm only a 7 out of 100 on my estate planning, that's something that I better focus on. And they dive back into the app, and then we help them take the action. So a lot of engagement and a lot of that behavioral stimuli, I think, is important to help people stay the course. In terms of the collaboration piece, so Paperwork, the main form factor is a mobile app. And so folks can set up an account in Paperwork, and then you can invite collaborators. So, for example, in my Paperwork account, my wife is one of my key collaborators. She holds me accountable to take the action. So that's, accountability is an important aspect of that. We've added my kids as well. So they've got optics into certain elements of our financial lives, which helps educate them as well. So that's a key component. And the final component around the collaboration piece is giving folks the ability to actually reach out to a financial coach if they want to as well. So the experience is digitized, it's digital enabled, and we want folks to go through that process. But at some point, if someone wants to reach out to a human touch, that's available to them as well. So there's collaboration on a number of different levels within the app.
Yeah, and collaboration and transparency. And you mentioned the generational attitudes towards money. I don't think I ever knew what my parents earned, but different generations might feel quite comfortable talking about that. And so, Tanya, part of Goal Setter is, in fact, actual collaborative accounts where different generations can kind of have the same access to the same account, and then there's more activities that they can do. So tell us more.
Sure. So, when we talk about how do you keep them engaged, we do believe that the way to keep young people engaged is to meet them where they are and to do the things that they want to do, right? Where are most of the young people who spending their time? They're spending their time on their phone, they're spending their time on apps, they're spending their time on YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok. And so we actually have really adopted a model of education meets entertainment meets gamification. And so we have, as an example, when Beyonce says, "Can you pay my bills? Can you pay my telephone bills?" We use that to explain Beyonce wouldn't need anyone to pay her bills. If she would just save for an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of her expenses, Beyonce could pay for her own bills. And so we have this whole, notion of money lingo. We have actually trademarked that term. And so we believe that it's really important to teach this key money language, because I can't go and sit down and have a conversation with Cody, or even I probably don't know what the difference is between a trust and a will unless someone's taught me that, right? And so we really try to, one, meet people where they are. And then the second thing that we do is we tie it to the things that they care most about. So for kids, what do they care about? Unfortunately, they all want to spend money, and we got to convince them to save and invest, right? So our financial education quizzes are tied to their debit card. Their debit card has rules called Learn Before You Burn. Their debit card will actually automatically freeze on Sunday morning if they haven't taken their financial literacy quiz for the week yet. And the minute they take that quiz, the card unfreezes again. If you're not a mean parent like I am, then you could also use the rule that's called learn to earn, and you can pay your kids for every quiz question they get right. So we are tying in the functionality with the education, with the gamification. And then one final thing I'll say about that is, we can all start building credit scores when we're adults. Actually, you can do it by adding your kid, to your credit card. But every kid out there can build a cred-lit score on GoalSetter. So it's not a credit score, it's a cred-lit score because you're becoming financially lit. And so every question that you answer that is correct, you earn points towards your cred-lit score, which also keeps up the gamification and engagement in the house.
I love it. It sounds like so much fun, which, is not something that we usually associate with financial planning. It's like, oh, this thing that we have to do and maybe keep pushing it off. But you're making it fun and making it engaging and part of the conversation, right? So here we are at CES, technology everywhere, super cool stuff that's just just being launched, stuff that's becoming more mature. How do you guys think about incorporating new technology, emerging tech into your platforms? What was sort of your design, strategy about how you're using tech, and what are you excited to see out here?
Two-part answer. One, when we started the company, Trustable, we had limited resources, small engineering team. I called it the grandparent test. She's 90 now, but if 85, if my 85-year-old grandmother can use Trustable, we did our job. And she used it. And so many of our friends' parents, our employees' parents, have used the product, and that's why we're grateful to be a part of the AgeTech Collaborative, is that almost half our customer base is 50 plus. They're thinking about sometimes the sadder things, the dying parents, a diagnosis, a divorce, they're downsizing, but these are still good prompts to get the estate plan updated or to get it done in the first place. And in terms of being at CES, this is very different than what Trust and Mold does, but I think the thing that makes me really excited for the future of technology is a lot of it becoming more behind the scenes. It's not as in our face, it's behind the scenes, it's effortless, it helps automate and enhance our lives without being, screen in the face 24/7, even though there's lots of screens here. So it's really cool to be here, and I think for Trust and Mold, our objective forever will be to help families protect their legacy, so continuing to make sure accessibility and inclusion is probably a new theme that you'll see emerge from us this year. It's based on age, race, and ethnicity, trying to better measure that and how we're penetrating those different communities, because right now we built the product for all, but we can't really tactically measure it. So that's a goal. Yeah, good.
Yeah, well, I love that intersection too of technology, but also cultural relevance, right? So how are you expanding into new markets?
Yeah, so still US based right now, but one of the big topics internally is a Spanish version of the platform. 40 million native Spanish speakers in the country, typically low adoption of estate plans. How do we at least start with a website and our educational content available in Spanish, and then prompting that into a product experience as one example. The other is accessibility. Accessibility is, we always, as young startups and tech companies, want to build the best products for the widest variety of audience, but sometimes you don't think what you don't know to build. So when you have people that come to the site that might have visual impairment, is the site optimized for their experience? So we have some really cool projects in the work to help enhance the experience for people that you wouldn't think would still need to use Trust Mo. If you're blind, you still should have an estate plan, right? So we're working on some really nice projects to help audiences that we didn't serve prior.
Nice. Beautiful. Yeah. Goal setter. Yeah.
So one of the things that excites me, and one of the reasons we're so happy to be here, and thank you for having us here, is that GoalSetter is about connecting multiple generations. What we are hearing from grandparents often is, I blew it with my kids. I didn't teach them anything about financial education, and now look at them. I don't want the same thing to happen to my grandkids. And so, grandparents can set up GoalSetter accounts for their grandkids. We had one grandparent who lives in California. His granddaughter lived in Connecticut. He calls her every Sunday, and they do her financial education quiz together, because that's a way that they can connect. He can send her goal cards instead of gift cards on birthdays and holidays to contribute to her savings account, or to help her to buy stocks and choose which stocks to buy. And obviously, technology is fueling all of that. This grandparent who was in California and his grandkid, is in Connecticut, prior to technology, that's really difficult in terms of connections. Maybe they get to see each other once a year on the holidays. She doesn't feel as connected to him, and she doesn't know who this guy is, right? That's not happening anymore because we're giving them reasons to connect every day, every week, on birthdays, on holidays. And so the connectedness that technology is fueling intergenerationally is one of the really important pieces for us.
Well, and it's so interesting because this is a generation that is actually growing up without cash, like physical cash. So it used to be a grandparent could hand you $5 or something, or a quarter or something. Like, even, I don't know, is there a digital tooth fairy now? Like, maybe that's the only time you actually need some coin. So helping like the whole, growth of digital money, right, and how that bakes into all the different services that you can then connect into GoalSetter.
Absolutely. The world has become cashless. Families are the last generation, or the last bastion of cash, right? Your kid is 7 years old. They walk in the house. This is going to happen to you in 4 years, Cody. And, or you walk in the house after a long day of like being cashless everywhere. And she's going to say, Dad, I did my chores. Can I have the $7 now? And you're going to be like, $7? Who has that? Right, so you're 100% right. Families are the last bastion of cash, but that's going away now. And so how do you help kids to use digital currency, but do it in a way that's responsible? Do it in a way that doesn't feel like gaming, like the money just goes away and somehow the money will be replaced again. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and make it tangible, right? Like, so you can wake up, you can go to an office, you could work, then you can like fill up your car with gas, and you can buy food, and then you can come home again, you can get on an airplane, you can fly somewhere, you can go home again, you're on vacation. And never once did you touch cash. You just showed up in the world and like things happened, right? So paperwork, like you're making sure that to control our digital lives, like everything is in order. Right? So
Correct.
How does technology play a role there?
So I think what excites me about technology, really to touch on three different levels, the way we think about it within paperwork. One is internally. So we've architected our platform in a way that we can integrate with other service providers. We can't do everything or be all things to all people, but you've got wonderful companies like Trust and Will focusing on the estate planning. We can actually add Trust and Will onto our platform for a specific solution in that area, and we're partnering with a ton of other great technology companies that are available on the paperwork platform. So as you go through what we call the paperwork path to financial wellness, we're guiding you, we're giving you the actions to take, and that final solution, if we don't provide it ourselves, the technology enables us to add other folks to our platform. That's on an internal basis. Externally, what technology is helping us do is via APIs, is to work with the broader financial services community. So we're able to offer a white label version of our app through financial institutions, credit unions, banks, regional and community banks as well, that, as I say, via API, make it possible to extend this to their member bases. And then the third element for us is the level of customization that we can offer up on paperwork. Again, just the way we've architected the system with a variety of technologies available is on top of what we call our technology layer, the content layer is highly customizable. So we're able to focus on financial wellness now as a core focus, but every now and then we do get institutions, companies out there saying to us, hey, paperwork, can you slightly modify the content to address a particular issue, solve for that problem, and we're able to do that as well. So there's a lot of customization available on the platform, which is really exciting because I think there's a lot of opportunity to help people with financial wellness and areas adjacent to financial wellness, like caregiving, for example, which is another big area that is on our radar in the future.
Yeah, that's a whole nother panel discussion that we should have because indeed, there's so many out-of-pocket expenses for caregivers that really go unrecorded and maybe unplanned for and become quite a shock at the end of a year or so forth. And so, let's have that conversation. But unfortunately, we do need to wrap this conversation.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
For innovators who are building financial wellness products, we've learned go after something that might be emotionally charged, but it's so important. make it intergenerational, make it fun. You know, you with your background in Nickelodeon, right? Like, so it's okay to, like, financial planning doesn't have to be this very dry topic. It could be something that's fun and engaging. Keep it tidy. Connect it. Interoperability is crucial. Right. Have the connect point so you can add more products and adjacent services, or be part of other people's products and services, so that together we can grow. So thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. We love having you as part of the AgeTech Collaborative.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thanks, everyone. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.